That is a pharynx. Upper part of pharynx, that is nasal part, pars nasalis pharyngis. And this part has communication with nasal cavity through what? What is this opening? Hoana. Then oral part of pharynx is opposite to oral cavity, and communication between oral cavity and pharynx, today you already answer, that is oropharyngeal isthmus or fauces. And then pharynx here, impossible to see, below pharynx continues into laryngeal part of pharynx because it is in front or behind of larynx. That is why in nasal part, through Hane, communication with nasal cavity, in oral part, communication with oral cavity, and in laryngeal part, communication with larynx through adductus laryngis, that is inlet into the larynx. Nasal part. In nasal part, we have three tonsils. One is unpaired and paired. Unpaired tonsil here, it is between superior wall and posterior wall. Name of this tonsil is pharyngeal tonsil or tonsilla adenoid. And another tonsil is between, here it is opening of auditive tube and here it is soft palate. And between auditive tube and soft palate we have tonsilla tubaria. And tonsilla tubaria, this is paired tonsil, two tonsilla tubaria and one tonsilla pharyngea. In oral cavity, you already know lingual tonsil, tonsilla lingualis. And what is a paired tonsil in oral cavity? Palatine. Tonsilla palatina. This is palatine tonsil. And that is why total number of all tonsils are six. Unpaired pharyngeal and lingual, and paired tonsilla tubaria and tonsilla palatina. Muscles of pharynx. We have two longitudinal muscles and three circular muscles. Longitudinal are palatopharyngeal muscle, start from soft palate and goes to pharynx, palatopharyngeal, and another is stylopharyngeal muscle, musculus stylopharyngeus, start from stylate process and goes to pharynx, stylopharyngeal. Circular muscles are three constrictors: musculus constrictor pharyngis superior, musculus constrictor pharyngis medius, and musculus constrictor pharyngis inferior. Have you got textbook? Textbook. Give me, please. Thank you. Pharynx, here it is. Stylopharyngeal and palatopharyngeal, they are longitudinal muscles, and here it is constrictors: musculus constrictor pharyngis superior, number 10, medius, number 9, and 7, that is constrictor pharyngis inferior. And pharynx has two fascia. One fascia inside of pharynx, that is fascia pharyngo-basilaris. It has surname because it starts, if you remember, on occipital bone, we have pharyngeal tubercle, tuberculum pharyngeum. Yes. This is place where fascia pharyngo-basilaris attached to this tubercle and fixed to the base of the skull. And outside from pharynx, on external surface, we have another fascia that is buccopharyngeal fascia. Yes, it starts from buccinator muscle and continues to pharynx. And last moment, that is topography. Nasal part of pharynx start from the base of the skull and finish at the level of this is first cervical vertebra, atlas. Second here, axis, that is tooth dense, yes. And below from this place, that is third cervical vertebra. That is why nasal part from from base of the skull to the second cervical vertebra. Oral part opposite to third cervical vertebra. And laryngeal part start from the fourth and descend to the level of C6 or C7. That is a level where pharynx continues into esophagus. My diagram only for your understanding. Here it is external nose, here it is lips, chin, and here this is nasal cavity, here Hoana, this is pharynx, that is nasal part, nasal pharynx. Then this is hard and soft palate. This is oropharyngeal isthmus, that is oral part of pharynx, and below here it is in front that is larynx, here it is larynx. And this is epiglottis. This is inlet into the larynx, and that is laryngeal part of pharynx. Laryngeal pharynx. And at the level of C6, sometimes at the level of C7, pharynx continues into esophagus. And esophagus has three departments of esophagus. This is, here it is cervical part, from C6 to second thoracic, from second thoracic till 10th thoracic vertebra, that is thoracic part of esophagus, and abdominal part insert into the stomach. Here it is, that is the stomach. Here it is stomach. This is abdominal part of esophagus from T10 to T11. That is level where esophagus opens into the stomach. That is cervical part, pars cervicalis, pars thoracica,
pars
abdominalis. In your textbook describes 5 constrictions of esophagus. First, in place where pharynx continues into esophagus, that is pharyngeal constriction. Next is at the level of T4, at the level of T4, arch of aorta attached to esophagus, that is level of T4. That is aortical constriction where aorta attached to esophagus. At the level of T5, here it is trachea and left main bronchi, bronchus principalis sinister attached to esophagus, that is level of T5. That is bronchial constriction because left main bronchi attached to esophagus. T10, that is diaphragmatic constriction in place where esophagus passes through diaphragm. And last, at the level of T11, that is cardiac constriction because it opens into cardiac opening of the stomach. 5 constrictions, one again. Pharyngeal, level of C6, it is wrong, should be here. This is pharyngeal at the level of C6, aortical constriction T4, bronchial constriction T5, diaphragmatic T10, and cardiac constriction T11. That is 5 constrictions of esophagus, but in new classification it is absent in your textbook. First, only 3 constrictions we distinguish. First is pharyngeal or pharyngoesophageal constriction. It is possible 2 names, pharyngeal or pharyngoesophageal constriction, C6. Second constriction, that is aorta bronchial constriction. Here it is T4 and T5. That is 1 constriction between arch of aorta and left main bronchi, aortica bronchial constriction. And last is diaphragmatic constriction at the level of T10. This constriction not distinguished in new classification. Why? Because we have here cardiac sphincter, but this sphincter is very weak and it's relaxate in cadaver. It's relaxate. It's if it is in some time when food passes through esophagus into the stomach, it's also relaxate and dilates, and heat is in most time. Here there is no constriction. That is why only 3 constrictions in U classification: here, here, and in diaphragm. Clear? What else? Upper third in cervical department, esophagus has striated muscles, the same like in pharynx. All another distant thoracic and abdominal part has smooth muscles. Mucous membrane has submucous layer, telesubmucosa, and mucous membrane makes longitudinal folds in esophagus. And in abdominal department, esophagus on external surface has peritoneum, that is serous coat. Peritoneum, it supplies esophagus anteriorly and laterally, that is mesoperitoneal position. In cervical and in thoracic department, external coat of esophagus, that is adventitia, that is connective tissue. Clear? And last, that is the stomach. Stomach has 2 openings, that is cardiac opening and who know what is the opposite opening? Pyloric. Pyloric. That is why part of the stomach near of cardiac opening, that is pars cardiaca, and part of the stomach near of pyloric opening, that is pars pylorica, pyloric part. Pyloric part subdivides into 2. That is antrum pyloricum, that is wide place of pyloric part where which attached to the body of the stomach. Here it is antrum pyloricum, and another part which continues to pyloric opening, that is pyloric canal, canalis pyloricus. This part of the stomach which is above of cardiac opening, here, this upper part of the stomach, that is fundus of the stomach. Sometimes speak about fornix. It is also correct name, but it is better to call fundus of the stomach. All another part, that is body, corpus gastrica. Gaster, that is Latin name of stomach. Corpus gastrica, that is body of the stomach. And 2 curvature, curvatura ventriculi minor, lesser curvature, and curvatura ventriculi major, greater curvature of the stomach. Ventriculus, that is Greek name of the stomach, ventriculus, that is lesser curvature, curvatura ventriculi, and greater curvature, curvatura ventriculi major. Then, stomach supply, it has anterior wall and posterior wall. Both anterior and posterior wall supplies with peritoneum. That is why stomach has intraperitoneal position. And wall of the stomach has 3 coats. External, I already said, serous coat, that is peritoneum. Middle layer, muscular coat. And muscular coat has 3 layers. External longitudinal layer, middle layer is circular, and inner layer of muscles is oblique. It starts from cardiac opening and goes to greater curvature of the stomach, and this layer helps to mix food in stomach. And last, mucous membrane. It has submucous layer, the same like in esophagus. It has a lot of folds. Only in lesser curvature we have longitudinal folds. In all another departments of stomach, folds in different directions, and they help to mix food in stomach. Mucous membrane of stomach has a lot of glands. Glandular gastrica, they are in body of the stomach. Glandular pylorica in pyloric part, and glandular cardiaca in cardiac part. These glands has 2 types of cells, chief cells and parietal cells. Chief cells produce pepsinogen, and parietal cells produce hydrochloric acid. In pyloric glands, only chief cells. Here in pyloric part, absent parietal cells and hydrochloric acid not produced in pyloric glands. Why? Because from stomach, food continues into duodenum, in duodenum alkaline medium. And that is why not necessary to produce hydrochloric acid if we need to neutralize it in duodenum. That is why only cardiac and gastric glands has two types of cells, both chief and parietal. And pyloric glands only have chief cells.
Chief cells.
What else? Topography of stomach. I already said topography of cardiac opening. It is at the level of T11.
11.
Pyloric opening usually at the level of L1, sometime at the level of T12. What else? Cardiac opening is opposite to the cartilage of the 7th left rib, and pyloric opening is behind of cartilage of the 8th right rib. Fundus of stomach take place in 5th left intercostal space in mid-clavicular line, and that is all about skeletotopy, how projection of stomach on bones. If we speak about syntopy, how stomach attached to another inner organs. Lesser cavity of the stomach attached to the right lobe of the liver. Fundus of stomach, here above of fundus we have diaphragm and left lobe of the liver. Behind of stomach we have heat and on the left side. Behind and on the left side heat is spleen. The same here, superior pole or extremitas superior of left kidney and adrenal gland. The same behind of stomach we have pancreas. In above of pyloric part, that is right lobe of the liver. And golotopia. Golotopia, that is projection of stomach on anterior abdominal wall. Look here. Have you got some time? We already finished. Well, look here. Pharynx, esophagus. It is abdominal cavity. That is, what is abdominal cavity? Space between diaphragm above and inlet into true pelvis below. Anterior abdominal wall in front, vertebral column, musculus quadratus lumborum and musculus psoas major behind. And laterally lateral muscles of the abdomen, external oblique, internal oblique, and transverse abdominis. And if we draw two horizontal lines, this is superior horizontal line at the level of 10th ribs, inferior horizontal line at the level of spina iliaca anterior superior, and two vertical lines laterally from rectus abdominal muscle. And we receive 9 regions on anterior abdominal wall, right and left hypochondric region and epigastric region above. In middle part, umbilical region in central part, and two lateral, right and left lateral abdominal region laterally, and below we have pubic region above of pubic symphysis, and two inguinal, right and left inguinal regions. And when you will describe topography of stomach, you need to say that most part of the stomach in epigastric region and in right hypochondric region. If stomach contain food, in this case, greater cavity of the stomach descend to umbilical region. Clear it is? That is all. Stomach, topography, glands, that is in X-raygram, we can see two parts of the stomach. Here it is digestive sac, saccus digestorius, that is most part of the stomach, and canalis egestorius, that is place which correspond to pyloric part, canalis egestorius, that is in X-raygram. The till small intestine, not necessary to read blood supply, nerve supply, and lymphatic drainage. Not necessary. It is, this information is, we will pass vessels in May, we will study nervous system in third semester, and lymphatic drainage the same we will speak in June. That is why this information about blood supply, innervation, and lymphatic drainage everywhere, in esophagus, in pharynx, in stomach, not necessary to read. Clear? That is all.